Joining me now is friend of the show, Democratic Representative Jasmine Crockett of Texas. She is on the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, and David Pepper, former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party and author of the book Saving Democracy, a user's manual for every American. Congresswoman, good morning. Thank you for being here. How do you plan to communicate the dangers of Project 2025 to voters, not just around a Trump presidency, but understanding that even a defeat of Donald Trump still leaves Project 2025 looming as a problem going forward?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks to MSNBC for actually discussing an issue that voters need to know about, which is Project 2025, instead of engaging in all of the extra drama that has been going on. Second of all, I think that it's really important that people understand that Project 2025 is actually already underway. As someone who served in the Texas House and had to endure the Heritage Foundation sending bills, because that's exactly what they've been doing, is they've been sending bills through our state houses and our state senates. That is how we got to the point that we ended up with these abortion bans. They called it the heartbeat bill in the state of Texas. That is something that they passed along to Texas. They passed it along to Florida. And so what people need to understand and decide is, if you like the direction that this country is going as it relates to our Supreme Court that has eviscerated our Constitution, that seemingly doesn't care anything about court precedents and seemingly only wants to bow down to Trump as if they are serving him in the way that Eileen Cannon just did, then that is what you will get more of. If you want to live in a country in which you are force-fed this pseudo-Christianity, where you have to believe in God and do the things that they say their God wants you to do, which I argue is the same God that they used to justify slavery in the first place. And then when we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion and what they've done in the Supreme Court, we already see this actually taking place. The issue that we don't understand is that the last kind of nail in the coffin is Trump getting into the presidency. And the scariest part about that is that, let's say he decides he doesn't want to leave the White House. Well, who's going to check him? Because the Supreme Court has decided that checking him is not really something they're interested in doing.
David, I want to ask you about J.D. Vance. You ran the Ohio Democratic Party. We are seeing a guy who went from being a never-Trumper, describing Trump as America's Hitler, to standing next to him, arm in arm, in lockstep, as his vice presidential pick, ready to fight the fight to get to the White House. Who is this guy? Which side of him can we trust? It seems like he will say what is politically expedient. What is it that voters need to know about who he is at his core?
First of all, thank you for the setup. You are a heck of a litigator. You made your case so well. J.D. Vance, I think, has shown us that he's someone who basically will do what he needs to do to gain power or to stay in power. And in many ways, that's the scariest thing of all. A few years ago, you called it out. He said what he said about Trump. He said he mused that he was America's next Hitler. Now all he does is sing his praises. And that should scare us. And one thing he made very clear in recent months is what Trump wanted was somebody to do what Mike Pence refused to do on January 6th. That was the ultimate test, that level of loyalty. And in recent weeks, J.D. Vance has made clear he wouldn't have even certified the election. So he's willing to go even that far. And I want to talk about 2025 for 1 second. I've been saying for some time, Trump is Project 2025 in every way, the associations, the ideas. But he's trying to get away from it now, right? If he was trying to get away from it, the worst thing he could have done was pick J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance is also the personification of Project 2025, all the connections back and forth, but also the heart of the issues, as you laid out, abortion bans, IVF. But the one you mentioned in particular, the heart of Project 2025 is ripping away civil service and putting into place loyalists at the DOJ, at the FBI, at the places that deal with pandemics and hurricanes. It would turn a government that's about us and make it about one man. As you said, J.D. Vance has been talking about that for a couple of years. So the effort to kind of minimize Project 2025 by Trump, it ended when he picked J.D. Vance, because now we've got two people, and in some ways Vance may be more the diehard supporter of 2025 than even Trump has been.
I want to stay with you for a moment. Strategically, when you think about what it is to pick a vice president, part of it is what they bring to the table. You talked about the fact that Donald Trump just wanted someone who would have done something different than Mike Pence on January 6th. But from a strategic place, do you think that J.D. Vance shores up Ohio for the president, a typical swing state? What is the feel that you have, politically speaking, about whether this is a shift in terms of Donald Trump adding those delegates to his count in terms of what he needs to get back to the White House?
I think Donald Trump gave Democrats a gift by picking J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance brings nothing new politically to the table for Donald Trump or Republicans. He actually, just a quick fact that gets lost, the governor of Ohio in 2022 was reelected by 25 points. J.D. Vance won by just more than 6 points. In a year you could not lose, he underperformed the top of his own ticket by 20 points in the margin of victory because with his very right-wing policies that you talked about, he alienated many of the very moderate swing voters that other Republicans were winning. So politically, this is actually a gift. Vance does nothing for Trump when it comes to voters he needs to win. The base is more excited about Trump than Vance already. And voters more in the middle, as we saw in 2022, actually rejected Vance. If that had been a closer year at the top of the ticket, Vance would have lost. So I think this was more about loyalty, maybe some money. It certainly wasn't about a politically savvy decision because Vance doesn't broaden Trump in any way. In fact, I think as we're talking about today, I think he makes him more vulnerable on a lot of issues that some of the voters in the middle are going to care most about.
Congresswoman Crockett, I have to ask, we've been talking a lot about Project 2025. Some people are asking, look, for as much as we are trying to sell Democratic voters against Project 2025, where is the Democratic plan that we are pushing to sell people in favor of? What does that look like and where does that come from?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you asked because I had an opportunity to tune into the RNC. And they said a lot and they said nothing at all, right? They talked about things such as inflation and how they were going to bring it down. Now, did they say how they were going to bring it down? Absolutely not. But we know that the policies that this administration put into place, we are just now starting to reap those benefits from things such as the Inflation Reduction Act, things such as the CHIPS and Science Act, specifically in Ohio. When we talk about whether or not there's going to be a real fight in Ohio, let me tell you, we've got results versus rhetoric. We know that there is a new Samsung factory that is over a $20 billion investment right there into Ohio. And that is a result of President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So when you talk about looking forward, though, like what are we going to do on housing costs? Because it's not this administration that sets the interest rates, but they know that housing costs are up. So what they need is a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and they want to make sure that they can put forward an opportunity for legislation to pass in which you would absolutely receive a stipend so that you can go ahead and get into a home. They want to make sure that it's not just the cost of insulin that comes down, but they absolutely want to push and be more aggressive and use the fact that they can bargain for so many of these life-saving drugs, and they want to bring those costs down. They want to continue to make sure that we're bringing jobs back to America. These are the things that we are going to do so long as you give us the House and the Senate. And of course, we are fighting for voting rights. We are absolutely fighting for repro rights. That goes without being said.
Congresswoman, before we go, I have to briefly ask you, even though it's a somber note, you're a member of the CBC, the Texas delegation. We lost a huge titan in Representative Sheila Jackson Lee just last night. Your reactions?
Yeah, I'm pretty devastated. It is an odd feeling for me. As only the fourth Black woman to ever be elected to Congress from the state of Texas. This time last year, 3 of the 4 of us were alive. And now we're down to just myself being alive. Sheila Jackson Lee was a warrior and a leader and a mentor and a friend of mine. And so not only will she be missed by the CBC, but really the country has lost a true champion.
Sobering words and important perspective. Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and David Pepper, thank you to you both.